what maybe makes my story a little bit different than a lot of others is that I am blind.
Yeah.
And I haven't always been blind. I lost my sight suddenly when I was 15 as a result of the bomb in Omagh.
You find courage when when you're at your lowest.
Yeah.
That's when you really find strength you have.
Absolutely.
And then you decided to take that step and set up your own business. Tell us about that process, why you did it and how you felt about it.
I often ask myself why I did it, Martina.
Welcome to the Martina Tierney Podcast, and today I am absolutely delighted. I have the most inspirational and courageous lady sitting in the studio with me today, Claire Bowes. Welcome, Claire.
Oh, thank you for having me, Martina.
So just a short introduction and then I'm going to let Claire speak for herself. Claire is the founding director of the Omagh Music Academy in Omagh, and she is a mother of 3 children, is that right?
Yeah.
A wife, and she is an entrepreneur. So I'm going to get Claire to introduce herself and tell us a little bit more about her. So Claire, very welcome to the Martina Tierney Podcast. I'm delighted to have you. I have read a part of your story in this lovely book, which we'll talk about later, and I'm totally inspired by you. So tell us a little bit about your story, Claire.
Oh, you've done a great job of introducing me, Martina. So yeah, as you said, my name is Claire, and I'm all those things that you said, and those would be kind of the things that I tend to focus on a daily basis. But I suppose what maybe makes my story a little bit different than a lot of others is that I am blind.
Yeah.
And I haven't always been blind. I lost my sight suddenly when I was 15 as a result of the bomb in Omagh. So I had to adjust very quickly, but that was my choice to from living a life where I was a very carefree teenager, like any teenager we know, to all of a sudden having no sight and trying to navigate life from that perspective.
It's very traumatic. And when I read your chapter in this book, I just couldn't help but feel that it was very like a grieving process. Would you agree with that? Like the feeling that you were having was very much, because I've read a lot about grief and I just felt a lot of the feelings that you were having was like a grieving process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did actually, I worked in the Royal National Institute of Blind People for 7 years as an eye care liaison officer, where I was based in the eye clinics offering emotional support and advice and information to people that were diagnosed with eye conditions or had lost or were losing their sight.
Yeah.
A role that I felt really privileged to do when I took on that position. But that was one thing we were taught was that sight loss is a grieving process. You're grieving for what you no longer have. Yeah. And it's a process that, like grief, you have to work through in your own time. There's no timeline as such, and everybody deals with it differently.
So if you don't mind maybe taking us back to that day, do you mind talking about it?
No, I don't mind at all.
Just tell us, just so that we get an impact, a feeling for the impact that it had on you and the traumatic and the suddenness of your blindness.
Yeah, so it was a beautiful sunny afternoon.
I remember it well.
Yeah.
I think everybody in Northern Ireland knows where they were the day of the bomb.
That's exactly it, yeah. And I was going into town with my friend, like we did. I mean, that's what teenagers in Omagh did. And we'd been to a teenage disco the night before. So as you can imagine, there was a lot of catching up to be done with our other friends. Yeah. So we were going into town to meet our friends that day for just a good catch up. And, you know, that was the plan. And we had been for something to eat and whatever. And then we're walking up the town when the police drove up through the town and started to cordon off the town. Now, I had been aware of the troubles and things like that growing up in Northern Ireland, but this was a totally new experience. And nobody was in any great rush to go anywhere. I was a real worrier. So at that time I was kind of in my head thinking I'd love to get out of here, but of course it was being brave in front of my friends too. That's it. And so anyway, the police then moved us further down towards the bottom of the town where they thought they were moving us to
Away.
safety. And unfortunately, they weren't. And at 3:10, a car bomb exploded. And I remember standing there feeling the ground shaking and dropping to the ground. Now, I don't remember being hit. I remember a feeling of like force towards my face. But I lost my sight instantly.
Right.
I didn't realise, though, that I had been blinded. I thought it was like dust and dirt or something. And I remember putting my tongue up to feel my teeth, my front teeth, and I chipped one of my front teeth. So as you can imagine, like as a teenager, I was gutted that I had a chipped tooth. Little did I know what I was going to have to face. And obviously adrenaline kicked in. I didn't feel any pain.
Goodness.
And I automatically put my hand over my face. Again, it must have just been instinct, just to cover over my eyes. And I got up and I was aimlessly wandering around. I don't know where I was going. But I remember feeling this intense heat, and a man came over and helped me at that point. And then I was taken by him out to the county hospital, which was our local hospital. And it was just, there was people everywhere. So the staff were, they weren't even triaging everybody at that stage. They were asking people to go out and get into ambulances to go down to Enniskillen Hospital. Because there were so many, they couldn't deal with the demand, I suppose. And I remember I conformed all the time. You asked me to do something, Martina, and I did it. I'd have been afraid not to. But we went outside. This person who had been a stranger to me, Gareth, I do mention him in the book. I remember saying to him, will you please stay with me until somebody comes that I know? Because he was the only thing familiar to me, even though I didn't even know his name at that point.
But he had accompanied you from that, from the site of the bomb to the hospital. And your mother was in the hospital.
Mummy was working. So as we were taken out to go down Enniskillen, I stopped and I said to him, I'm not going down Enniskillen. My mummy's working. And I remember him going, why? And I said, because my mummy's working in there and I need her to know that I'm okay. So we went back in, and then a nurse came over to take my details. And at that point I said, look, my mum is working in radiography. Can you just let her know that I'm okay? But I know other people need her. But of course, as soon as mum was told where I was, she was straight over to my side. And I was triaged very soon after that, and the first helicopter out of Omagh to the Royal. And at that point, actually, my daddy had arrived at the hospital. So I felt very grateful to have both my parents with me and that they knew where I was at that point.
You must have been very disorientated, were you?
Yes, but I don't remember.
I feel fear even thinking about it.
The disorientation would have came more the next day when I woke up in the hospital bed. After having surgery and everything that night, because this was then the reality. You know, my face was bandaged. I still didn't know the extent of my injuries at that stage, but that was the point where, then I was completely disoriented. I was afraid to get out of the bed.
Absolutely.
And I don't know what I was afraid of, but I just put it down to the whole trauma and not being able to see.
And then at that stage, how long were you in hospital then after that?
I was only in initially for about 2 weeks. And then I got home for about 10 days in between times, where then I was waiting to come back in and have one more surgery at that stage, which was to try and restore some sight in my left eye. So it was the 12th of September 1998 that I was told that operation hadn't been a success and that I would never see again.
And how did you take that news, Claire?
Again, I think at that time I was quite numb because of everything that happened, and it was still very early days. And I remember my consultant came in to me on the Saturday morning to tell me himself that I would never see again, that the surgery hadn't been a success. And Mummy and I were on our own in the room then afterwards, and Mummy asked me how I felt. And I said, I don't know. And when I think about it now, like my mum's strength even.
Yeah, it must have been very difficult for her too.
It has to have been, and
my
I'm the
goodness.
oldest of 5.
Right.
And as a parent now, I think about it much more.
Absolutely.
But Mum asked me, how I felt. I said, I don't know. And she said, well, Claire, we have 2 ways to look at this. She said, we can sit around and feel sorry for ourselves. And she hadn't even that sentence out of her mouth when I was like, no, that's not happening. And then she said, well, the only option then is to go on with it. And that's what we did.
Yeah. So, and I know you said this in the chapter in the book as well. You said that you got on with it, but it wasn't smooth sailing.
No.
It wasn't easy. And
No.
sometimes when people look at you and, me seeing you, I've met you a couple of times just thinking, God, you're so inspirational, you're so courageous. But there's bound to have been days when you just didn't feel like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there still is sometimes, Martina. Like even yesterday, I can't remember what I was trying to do, but I was getting so frustrated because I knew if I could see what I was trying to do, it would be so much easier.
Yeah.
But no, it was a long road. And when I think back to that time initially, like I do say, I think what stood by me was 1, that I was a stubborn teenager, and 2, an element of denial almost. Because denial from I accepted that I couldn't see. I had accepted what had happened, but denial in that I wasn't going to let it hold me back.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I remember when I went back to school, because I went back to school just after that Halloween.
I know,
Because
that
it was
so
my
soon.
yeah.
Yeah.
But again, what was the alternative? I was seeing those couple of months where I wasn't at school. I was so bored because I couldn't go out on my own. I didn't want to go out.
No.
But it was a very tiring time, even when I went back to school.
It was like learning everything again.
Absolutely, even
Things that were familiar
Yes.
were no longer familiar.
Yeah, even like things of where things were in my own home. Trying to remember where things were, even telling the difference in shampoo and conditioner, things that I never thought of, even making a cup of tea or coffee or, all those things. Never mind how I accessed school materials.
Yeah.
And like this was almost 28 years ago.
Yeah.
Technology wasn't what it is now.
No, I know. No, that's true.
But I was determined and that's what saw me through.
Just to get, I want to move on from that, but was any of your friends injured in the bomb? Did you lose anybody else?
Thankfully, I didn't lose anybody else, but some of my friends, they had some physical injuries, but they still carry the psychological scars,
Absolutely, yeah.
and that's...
And did you get
I'm very aware of
counselling or anything since around that time? And did it help?
Do you know what? I want to say I remember being sent to counselling because it was like, this is what you do.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was like, I was thinking, I don't see the point in this. And then it was a few years after, actually, I made the decision. I was really finding things tough when I was about 17. I think it was probably the reality of everything then. And
the permanent nature of it all.
And I still was afraid to go into the town, particularly to that part of the town. I didn't like being at home on my own. I didn't like to sleep in a room on my own. Those were all the things that were happening at that time.
Yeah.
And when I was about 17, I actually went for cognitive behavioural therapy. And that was the one thing for me that I found made a huge difference.
Right.
That and my music.
Your music.
Yeah.
And we're going to come on to that.
Yeah.
We're going to. So before we do get on to that there, so you did your A-levels?
Yeah.
O-levels at first, I presume,
Yeah,
after your incident, and then you did the A-levels, and then you went to university.
I did.
So where did you go and what did you study at university?
I went to Queen's to study music.
We went to study. Were you always interested in
Always.
music?
I loved music. I had no idea what I wanted to do with it. But I always loved music. And actually at that time when I was going to Queen's, I thought I wanted to be a music therapist.
Right, yeah.
So the music degree was the first step because the music therapy qualification was then a postgraduate qualification.
Yeah.
So yeah, the day I finished my A levels, the day after I finished my A levels, I went to Belfast to start training with my guide dog, Benny, because I knew this was another stage, because I couldn't just rely on people the way I did when I was at school, because while my friends and that were moving to uni with me, they weren't going to be doing the same course that I was doing.
Did you rely very much on people more before you got Benny, and you didn't use white sticks, you didn't use a cane or anything?
I tried learning to use a cane, but I could not, and it was up and down the straight corridor in school was the first place I tried it, but I couldn't put my trust in it.
No.
And even when I first got Benny, it was a long time before I actually went out on my own with him. Again, I think it was just the traumatic circumstances that I had lost my sight, and then also just putting trust that I was going to be safe.
Yeah.
But I remember the very first time I did go out on my own with him, and I was so proud of myself. I thought I was brilliant.
Of course.
But it did, he gave me a whole new lease of life.
I know. I'm jumping the gun here a wee bit, but I read that that you decided to give Benny up when you got a job because he was just sitting under the table all day.
Yeah.
I just felt so sorry for you and for Benny having to part.
We didn't part.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Oh, good.
So
where is Benny?
We kept Benny as a pet at that stage.
Oh, right,
I think
right.
at that stage, Martina, my husband, would have also left if Benny left, and because he was so attached to him.
Yeah.
But
that's good.
Yeah.
I was reading. Oh, poor Benny.
If I had got another guide dog,
Uh-huh.
I would have had to have got rid of Benny, because it wouldn't have been fair on Benny or the new guide dog,
No.
to be in the same space. But because at that time I did learn then to use a white cane, because I'd got more confident.
Yes.
And for getting to and from work, I was working in the Royal in Belfast at that time. So I got a taxi to the Falls Road entrance and learnt the route with my cane in there and up in the lift, and I could find my way around with a cane. So I didn't have a need for another guide dog. So it meant we were able to keep Benny as a pet and spoil him the way he deserved to be spoiled.
Oh, good. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Good to know. I was thinking that about Benny.
Oh, we couldn't have got rid of him.
No, I wondered. It wasn't just clear in the book. So, when did you meet your husband? Where did you meet him? And how did that all happen? I'm just taking you through all the different stages of your life here to build up a nice picture.
Ryan and I actually met when I was 14 initially.
Oh.
But we didn't start going out until 1999, so a year after the bomb.
Oh, right. So he's from Omagh.
He's from Omagh,
Right.
We met through a mutual friend, and as I say, we were just young and carefree teenagers at that stage, and then it was just a year or so after the bomb then when we started going out. Right. So it's funny, to me, Ryan still in my head looks like a 15-year-old.
Oh, nice.
And I remember what he looks like, which is lovely that I did.
Nice.
That I did see him and stuff. But so he's been there through it all.
He's been there through it all, and I suppose he's your rock, really, isn't he?
Absolutely, yeah.
Very good. I'm going to talk about music in a minute, but there's one bit that I read that really resonated with me, and it was when you had your children. Because my mother had 13 children, and then she had about 100 grandchildren, and she was a disaster. When you took the children over, she would say to me, you couldn't lift your eyes off them.
Yeah.
Because they were into everything, and they were lifting stuff off the floor and all. And I always had that in my head. When I was reading a bit about your book, you can't lift your eyes off them. How did you cope with that? A young baby crawling around the floor, or, because my own daughter, when she was 2, she reached up for a cup and she pulled hot water down herself. And I had vision and I let that happen. How did you cope with that?
I think at the time I didn't overthink it. I think my mummy was much more aware of it and prayed very hard all the time.
Yeah.
But with her first, it wasn't so bad because there was only him, so it was easier to keep things off the floor. It was more then when the younger children came along and the older ones had the smaller toys and things like that.
Yeah.
We just found ways of trying our best to make it work, and thankfully I never had a situation with any of them that was my fault. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think I would
as a result of your vision. Yeah.
But generally what I would have done, was not necessarily kept them in the one area as such, but made sure whatever room we were spending most of our time in was safe. And then even in our, like when they were old enough to go out into the back garden and play and things like that, I knew everything out there was safe.
Yeah.
Everything was totally enclosed.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of being organised and that.
Did it cause you increased anxiety, do you think? I suppose having children's anxious, anyway.
Isn't it? And that's
No
what
matter-
and that's what I always say is that, when you're handed your first baby for the first time, none of us know what to expect.
No.
So it's very different for us all. I remember after having our oldest child, Oren, when my husband was going back to work, like I remember standing with Oren in my arms and like trying to fight back the tears to tell Ryan, that, yeah, we'll be okay. But I think that's the same for every new mum.
It is,
Yeah.
indeed.
And again, I suppose I had a lot of experience with children because I have a lot of cousins and that are younger than me.
Yeah.
So I wasn't afraid of what to handling him or what to do with him and stuff like that. But yeah, I just needed to know where everything was. It took a wee bit more organisation, but by that stage I had realised that.
Yeah.
But and I suppose maybe I was very conscious of safety risks, maybe more so than if I didn't have my sight.
Yeah. Your children were probably safer than a whole lot of people because
I don't know.
you were taking extra precautions.
Yeah, probably. But
Yeah.
I've got them this far, so
You have. What age are your children now?
almost 17, 14 and 11, and I don't know how that has happened.
I know. Just flew
It's
in.
a blink.
Yeah. One of the other things you said was that you feel privileged to be alive.
Yeah.
Which is a very positive way to look at life, considering the challenges that you've had to
Yeah.
face. But you still feel like that. You focus more on what you've left
Yeah.
as opposed to what you lost. I think that's a
Absolutely.
good phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were 31 lives lost that day in Omagh, and several of them were a similar age to me. And from that point of view, I do consider myself as one of the lucky ones. And even in terms of my injuries, I don't have any other marks on my body. I have a tiny scar on my chin, but it's minimal. But I was hit by a piece of metal that went across my left eye and across the bridge of my nose and was embedded behind my right eye. And there's two main arteries that go behind the bridge of your nose, and the piece of metal was actually lodged between those two arteries.
Right.
So I'm very aware of how my story could have been very different. And I do count myself as very lucky and privileged to still be here. And that's why I make the most of my life.
Yeah.
And, even like when I turned 40 and so many people are going, oh my goodness, you're celebrating turning 40. I was like, of course I am. It's a privilege.
Absolutely.
Lots of people don't make those milestones. And I suppose that's my drive
Yeah.
that keeps
And
me going
do
too.
you think that life, that things happen for a reason?
Yeah,
100%.
100%.
And it sounds very, difficult to accept what you've had to accept. But it's the same with somebody dying young or somebody, you've just had, it's the way life's meant to be for that person.
Yeah.
So do you accept that?
I do. And it's, it's hard to always know what the reason is. And there's times that maybe you don't think, you're like, well, this couldn't be it. But when I look at the life I have now and everything I have achieved, there's no guarantee that my life would have turned out that way
No.
had I not lost my sight.
No. You find courage when when you're at your lowest. That's when you really find what strength you have.
Absolutely.
So speaking about that and about strength, so you were in a job situation and then you decided to take that step that's into the unknown, which we're all afraid to do, is set out on your own and set up your own business. Tell us about that process, why you did it and how you felt about it.
I often ask myself why I did it, Martina. And funny, I was at Choices Day with our second son the other day for his GCSE choices. And we were talking to the business studies teacher and she was selling it really well. And I said, gosh, maybe I should do this myself. Because I think like a lot of business owners out there, like myself, I got into running my own business because I was passionate about music.
Yes.
I've had to learn all the other
Absolutely.
stuff,
I
and
know
still
I
am.
can resonate with that.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, and well, we lived in Belfast for about 7 years, and that's when I worked. I absolutely loved my job in RNIB. I had thought I wanted to do music therapy before that, as I said, but when I got this full-time job, I was loving it, and everything was great. And then when I was pregnant with our second son, we moved back home to Omagh. So I think when children start to come along, you start to realise how nice it is to have family nearby and things like
where
that.
you want to bring them up. And,
That's it.
Yeah.
I always said I couldn't cope with their first night out being to the Bot or somewhere like that. So moving back to Omagh was the safer option.
Yeah.
And so we moved back home to Omagh, and then when I was on maternity leave, I really started thinking more about my music and how I missed it and whatever. And I remember saying to Ryan, I have this dream of opening a music school, because I was really shy as a child, and I loved playing piano, loved learning piano, loved my teacher and everything. But like for most people, I went to her house for lessons, so nobody else heard me play.
Yeah.
I never had to play in front of anybody. I went home and I practiced in a room that nobody else was in. And I think that is why I didn't have a lot of confidence when it came to performing. So I thought I would love to have somewhere where people could come together and feel part of something and learn and play together. And I had thought about it and thought about making something of it, and then work. It came to my time to be going back to work, and work offered me a job covering the Western Trust, which was ideal because that's where I was now living.
Yeah.
And I asked them, could I have a 4-day week? And basically anything I asked them for,
They gave you?
they gave me.
Oh, good.
They made it too easy for me to go back. So I thought, right, well, this is the safer option. I'm just going to go back and, that'll be it. And I'll be happy enough. And I did go back. And I was happy enough in some ways. But I remember one morning, at that time, Ryan travelled to work. So he was gone by 7 to be home for 5. And I was getting myself and the 2 boys ready. And I was feeding the youngest and telling the older one to hurry up to get ready to go. And I remember thinking, there has to be more to life than this. This rushing every morning to get them out and whatever. So I stuck it for 4 months, and in the October I walked into work with my letter in hand because I knew that was the only way I would see it through, and handed it to my manager and says, I'm giving you my notice.
And you naively thought that having your own business would give you more time, did you?
I did, yeah. How silly was I?
Maybe you were a little bit more in control of it, maybe, but probably did far more hours, did you?
Yes, but the difference was there wasn't that rat race of trying to get out for 9, especially with the nature of my business. Our busiest times from 3 o'clock.
Yes.
Which then also, I had the conversations with Ryan, and I was like, should I wait till the children are older? I'm going to be out at work when you're coming home from work.
Yeah.
And you're going to be the one that has to take care of the children and whatever until I get home. And at that time he said, and Ryan is not one for, it's always very much like, do what you want to do, Claire. He doesn't tell me what to do or anything like that. But at that time, and I've said this so many times, he said to me, he was like, Claire, you have to try it.
Good.
He said, if you don't try it, you'll never know.
No.
And if you try it and it doesn't work, at least you've tried it.
That's right. Exactly.
And he said, but if you do try it and it does work, then, happy days. And that was that very conversation where I was like, right, okay, I'll give this a go. Yeah. I'd say he regrets having that conversation with me ever since, because I've done so many things now because I take that on board.
Yeah. There's a phrase going through my head, and it is, don't die with the music in you. So you definitely are not going to be able to say that you died with the music in you, literally.
Absolutely.
Because you got the music out and you spread it out so many different people.
Yeah.
So just going back to music, what is the power of music for you?
it doesn't matter what mood you're in or how you're feeling, but music can always make you feel better or help you deal with whatever's going on at that moment. So even for any of us that don't play an instrument, like if you think of music that you listen to, you know, there's music that you know if you put it on will make you cry.
Yes.
There's music that you want to listen to when you're in a good mood or things like that. So, you know, music is so powerful. And even then when we are learning an instrument, it's a somewhat of a distraction as well, because when you're concentrating on playing your instrument and learning your instrument, you're not thinking about...
Yeah, it's almost like a meditation.
Absolutely.
Isn't
in
it?
many
Because
ways.
you have to focus on that and that. Yeah. It's almost like,
Yeah.
Very good. So the Music Academy, you have about how many? 200?
We have about 200
200
students,
students,
and 12 tutors.
And how many, what age range?
Oh, from about 5 to 80 plus, I would say.
Right.
So we say we teach people of all ages and abilities.
Very good. And what instruments? All instruments?
Yeah, a real variety. We've piano, singing, guitar, drums, violin, banjo. Yeah. So I think those are the main ones.
And are you mainly now managing the business, running the business, or are you still teaching?
I still teach a bit because I absolutely love teaching so much. I don't want to step away from that.
No.
But yeah, basically managing it, which is not what I ever set out to do.
No.
But you get to that stage in business where you have to take on that role.
But like myself, I set up Seating Matters because I saw the need for somebody that needed a proper chair and it wasn't there, and I was passionate about how people sat and everything.
Yeah.
But then once I started that, you know, it just got so much bigger, and the management of a company and tax and VAT and employees, oh my goodness, it was just, it moves you away from what you have to always bring. I'm lucky that I have people around me now that I can still focus, you know, on why I started.
Yeah.
So you don't want to lose that.
No,
and that's why
definitely not.
you're holding on to you want to be training because you don't want to lose that.
Yes,
why
absolutely.
you started. Yeah.
And I would say there will always be part of me that still teaches, because that's what makes me so happy as well. You know, when you see what the students are achieving and you see what you're passing on to them, that's what makes it all worthwhile. And that's what reminds me of my why when you're doing the less fun parts of running a business.
Right. And you have to do that if it's going to be successful.
Absolutely.
And just today, before I came in here, I was flipping through my phone and I noticed that you've launched a charity.
Yes.
And I know you haven't actually launched it yet, but I just happened to see it on social media. So tell me about that, because I was interested. We had a wee brief discussion before we started.
Well, when I opened Omagh Music Academy, I've always been very aware of how I don't want it to be exclusive to people that can afford lessons, because I know instrumental lessons are expensive, and that's the one side of business that I don't like. And we've always managed to have a scholarship for one student every year, and I've just always trusted my gut, and it has always happened that the right person comes forward at the right time. But I wanted to do more with it and wanted to make it more formal.
Yeah.
So I've been working on it quietly behind the scenes with a friend of mine, Heather. And now is the time to make the charity happen, I suppose. So the charity is called Creative Arts and Music. And our aim is to offer quality music education to all children and young people across Northern Ireland. And I know it's a big goal, but I know we can make it happen.
Okay. And how do you propose to fund that?
Well, we'll be looking for philanthropic, or hoping to get some philanthropic donations, but we'll also be applying to many of the funding bodies out there to hopefully support us, because we're so aware of the benefits of music academically, but also for well-being and social inclusion, and just making music can bring so much joy to life.
Absolutely.
So we're fortunate to have received some initial funding from the Ireland funds that is going to enable us to carry out some pilot projects and an independent review that'll hopefully justify what we're doing.
Good. And when will it be open, I presume, as an application, or how do people access the funds?
But it'll be after summer that people will be able to apply as such and contact us but like from now we're wanting to build up relationships and get our name out there and have the conversations with organisations, educators and community organisations, schools 100%. To have the conversations to start to make those relationships that we can then build on going
and
forward.
What is this logo competition you've going at the minute?
Well, we could not agree on a logo. We couldn't decide what we wanted, so we decided that the best option was, and when I say we, this is our board, the charity board. We decided that the best option was, because the charity is for children and young people, we have put out not a plea, but an ask of our children and young people here in Northern Ireland to design our logo.
Very good.
And we're hoping
getting them involved.
That's exactly it. Yeah, and that's
taking
how we want to
ownership
do
of
it.
it.
Yeah, absolutely, because we want to deliver what they want.
Yeah.
So it's very important to us. So we're hoping that we'll get some good ideas, and then the winning one will be the charity logo.
There's one thing that you mentioned which resonates a lot with me, because we do it here at Seating Matters. That's something as a family we have always done, and it is to have gratitude for things.
Yeah.
And I notice again in the book that's one of the words that you use. How important is that to you, to have gratitude? Because many people would, on the outside looking at your situation, might think, goodness, she's grateful for, but why is that important? And do you feel grateful and gratitude?
Yeah, I do. And for me, that's something, going back now, just over 2 years ago, we had the most horrendous 2 years that if I was to tell you everything that happened, you'd think there's no way she has to be making that up. But I'm telling you, it wasn't.
Cool.
One of those things where you're like, how much more can be thrown at us here?
Right, okay.
And but I am a firm believer as well, again, in everything happens for a reason, and what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, and we can learn from anything in life. And it was actually really after that time that I really started practicing gratitude, because I knew I'd had enough. And I remember the very day that I decided, right, that's it, no more nonsense is happening. And I was like, I'm just going to make the most of every opportunity and grasp everything that comes my way. And that was when I really started to practice gratitude. So I was reading a lot as well in that. And I thought, right, this is not going to do me any harm here. So in the morning when I get up, I still do this, think of 3 things that I'm grateful for that day. And if I can't think of 3, I think of 1.
Yeah.
And what I always say is, it may not suit everybody, but don't knock it till you try it.
No.
And that, I still stand by that. And I mean, to give you one example, there was one day I had a really, really rubbish night's sleep, and I woke with a really bad head, and the day had to go on because the children had school and work was happening, and life does go on. And that morning I was standing in the shower and I had a good talking to myself. And that morning I was grateful for a hot shower, good coffee and paracetamol.
Absolutely.
But I got out of that shower and felt so much better about the day.
Yeah,
so it doesn't have to be huge
big
things
thing.
that you're grateful for. And that's what I always say. And then the other thing, and I did this to keep me accountable. My daughter, she's 11, and every night, and we still do this, her and I, before she goes to bed, we tell each other the best part of our day.
Yes.
And again, not just even when you've had the worst day, or what you imagine is the worst day, you can still pick something out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a great way to go to bed then at night.
It
when
is.
So it's only simple things, but they're worthwhile.
Well, I practice that as well, the gratitude journaling. And, you could write 100 things on a page because you can write. I mean, I like my soft pillow.
Yeah.
I like my clean sheets.
Yeah.
You know, I like a dry towel when I go into the shower. You know, it's the small things.
Absolutely.
I like the fact that there's milk in the fridge when I go down to make a cup of tea. You know, it doesn't have to be big things. And just finding all those little things to be grateful for.
Yeah.
And what it does, and you know this I'm as well as anybody, is it gets you to focus on the good things.
Yeah.
And takes your mind off the things that are not going well.
Absolutely.
And and it's all about like that attraction as well. If you feel good, if you start to get yourself into that way of feeling good, well, then more good things will come your way.
Yeah.
It's, you know, so yeah, I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for you to have written that in the book because I noticed that. And as I say, there's so much in your book that resonates with, you know, the journey that I was on, that I am on. And even though it's a very different journey, but it's just that, you know, digging your heels in and saying, you know, we're going to have to get on with this or, you know, focusing on the good and not the bad. And it's, as you rightly say, every day isn't going to be good. You're going to have days where you're really down. But if you know, like, it's going to get better, that's an important thing.
That's exactly it.
I also read the bit about, you know, as someone asked one of your sons, what's it like to have a blind mother? And he says, well, I didn't know any different.
Yeah. My children are probably the least, I don't want to say the least compassionate, but they're brilliant. But what I mean is they often need reminded that I can't see because they're just so used to me doing things in the house. Like I cook, I clean, I do all the things that a mummy does, and they would all say that they don't think of me as being blind. Now, what I will say is, while it's not in the forefront of their minds, once we go out of the house or out of familiar surroundings, they're the first to offer me assistance. Yeah. Or if we're somewhere, they'll describe something to me or tell me about something that they know I would be interested in. But I can't see it. So they're brilliant in that respect. But yeah, they don't.
Well, do they leave their shoes lying around the kitchen?
100%.
Do they?
Yes.
And the door's open?
Yeah, they do. They constantly need reminded. And And I often find myself going, geez, not remember that there's a blind person lives in this house. But I do feel it's made them very aware of other people with disabilities.
That's right. Very good. Do you know another thing that struck me was that you've left your children that they have no excuses for not getting on with life and succeeding.
I know.
Because, you know, if they come to you, like this is a very small example in my life. Like my daughter's getting married, but when she was about 16, she says, I'm not getting married in a chapel because I don't have anybody to walk me up the aisle. You know, she's feeling all sorry for herself because her father had died when she was 15. And I says, well, I didn't have anybody to walk me up the aisle either because my father died when I was 9. And she goes, oh, I suppose that's right. You know, she was so into herself that she forgot that other people have overcome these challenges. So, like with your children, if they get a wee bit, I can't do this or this is hard, you're there to give them that wee bit of, well, you can overcome. Does it make a difference that you've overcome so much?
I don't know if it does in that way, but what I will say is, and that's it from your daughter saying that when she was in her teens, like that's a total teenage response, isn't it? You know, we don't care what anybody else experienced when we're teenagers. But I think sometimes, my children, I hope that they look at me and see what is possible. And I can see this with our eldest at the minute. Like he's almost 17 and he has his plans. He's knows exactly what he wants to do. He's talking about travelling when he finishes school, and I'll 100% support him in doing what he wants to achieve. And I'm hoping that I have taught them that if you put your mind to it, you can achieve anything you want to achieve. But then there's the other part of it as a mummy where you're like, I don't really want to let you go.
That's right.
But they're not ours to keep.
No, that's right.
And you know, that's where I see, hopefully I've done, well, me and their daddy have done the best job when we're encouraging them to be independent and set their goals high and achieve.
Yeah. That reminds me to ask you, what about your parents? How have they managed all these years watching you grow and develop and achieve Is your parents still with you?
Yeah,
Good.
they are.
How have they coped with watching you achieve and everything over the years? What's the relationship like there with your parents after all the trauma you have been through?
It's been a really interesting one, and funny when you were saying there about your daughter when she was a teenager. When I was a teenager and this happened to me, I never really entered my head what it must be like for mummy and daddy. But I'm the oldest of 5.
Yeah.
And I was always, I just enjoyed doing this stuff. Martina, it wasn't that I was made to do it, but like I would have regularly made dinner, or I loved making a Sunday dinner. I loved to bake. I loved to clean. Like I know that's strange. I know, but I really just enjoyed doing those things. And I know Mummy would say, she found that a bit different. But then I think the fact I was able to do all that before is probably why I still do all those things now and continue to do them. But it's only when I became a parent myself and thought about it, like my parents were in their 30s when I lost my sight.
They were so young.
So young. And Mummy stayed in hospital with me. Like she slept on 2 chairs in my ward. I didn't want to be on my own. And then eventually she got a bed. And I never really questioned where my other siblings were. Like family members just rallied around to help out. Yeah. But Mummy stayed. She didn't leave me for one night in the hospital. And Daddy stayed in Belfast with one of my aunts. So I had Mummy and Daddy with me the whole time. But never once, never in my life ever, for me or my siblings, when any of us have suggested doing something, never have my parents went, well, how do you think you'll do that? No. They always supported us. Brilliant. And even when I think, like when I was in hospital, it was suggested that I went to Jordanstown Schools for the Blind to learn rehabilitation and everything. And it sounded like a great option, but I remember then thinking, I don't want to board, because it was 2 hours from Omagh. I was going to have to go and stay there all week. And I remember saying to Mum, I don't want to go to Jordanstown. I don't want to board there. I want to stay at home. I want to go back to my school. And she made it happen. Yeah. So they were so supportive. Never once did I see my parents cry in front of me. They helped, whatever I wanted to do. Like even when it came to getting a guide dog, it was like, okay, what do we do here to help make this happen for you? Even when I went off to university, they never stopped me.
They must have been worried behind the scenes.
They have been.
They must have cried behind closed doors.
Yeah, I would say they did, without doubt.
They did, but they weren't going to let you see that side. No.
And we've talked about, I've said to Mum and Dad that I can't imagine what it was like for them as parents. And they're really supportive. And even when we moved back to Omagh, obviously because I didn't drive or anything, like my daddy drove me to work. He came and lifted the boys every day to take them to day nursery, and they were so supportive. Mummy would have come round to give us a hand. Even when Oren was born, our oldest, she went to a 4-day week. You'll understand this one as a granny, Martina. She went to a 4-day week so she could come to Belfast to spend a day with us, and we'd have just went out for a walk or done simple things, but enjoyed them. So yeah, they always have been really supportive and still remain really supportive. And never stopped me from doing anything.
It was tough on them, I'm sure.
It has to have been, because as a parent, all you want is your children to be perfect. Yeah, you don't want anything wrong with your children.
Be happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they must be really proud of you because of all that you've achieved, and we haven't touched on half of it because you're also doing a PhD as well at the moment.
I am, yeah.
Where is that and what's that? Tell us a little bit about that.
I, because I can't say no, and because I again, just want to sort of better myself and things. I did a master's in music psychology a few years ago. So the title was Music Psychology for Education, Performance and Wellbeing, which tied in so well to the work that I do. I thought I'm going to learn a lot through this that'll help my students and me. And through that, I had to do some work on performance anxiety. And I suffer hugely from performance anxiety. I've performed in various prestigious events and I've never enjoyed any of them. And I realised that this all came from a fear of forgetting, because I had to memorise everything I learned to play after I lost my sight.
Yeah.
I did have 2 instances where I took a complete mind blank, and that really put me off. So I realised that it was because I wasn't memorising music in the most effective way.
Okay.
And as I researched further, I realised that there isn't anything out there to say what the most effective way is to memorise for someone who's blind. So I did some research for my master's I interviewed musicians with vision impairment on their experiences of learning, and they all had a similar experience to me. They just found a way that worked and went with it. So that has led me now to my PhD research, where I'm looking at effective memorisation strategies for blind children learning piano. Because my idea is that if they're introduced to memorising effectively from early in their learning journey, they'll be more confident in their approach, and then performing won't be as big an issue for them because they'll have a really solid strategy for memorising their music. So I'm doing it at the University of Roehampton in London. I just travel back and forth. I don't have to travel that much, which is great. But it's a beautiful campus, so it's lovely to get there when I do. So I'm hoping this will make a difference.
Do you have children with vision impairment in your academy yet? Not
I
yet,
don't.
But
No.
you're hoping that you, in the future, would you
Well,
want
I'm
to
hoping
encourage
this. Well,
that?
yeah. Well, we do. If we teach anybody that comes our way, and yes, we just want to have the best approach, so that if we were faced with teaching people learning through non-visual means, because this research will help anybody that struggles to read sheet music, that we'll be able to approach teaching them the best way possible.
Excellent. I'm going to finish off with this book that I got your chapter in. It's called Where There Is Only Plan A Action.
Yeah.
Tell us the history about this book and why you're in it, and is there a story behind this? How you got involved with this book?
Well, there was a shout out looking for authors to contribute, where we would be supported along the way and guided in writing a chapter. And writing my story is something that I've thought about for a very long time.
Yes, I think you should.
But I had no idea of how I would approach it, or, the way we always have that little element of doubt that creeps in, or maybe nobody will be interested, or is it a waste of my time, or how do I get started?
Do it for yourself.
That's it. Well, and now I very much know that. And that's what I very much did with this chapter. I thought, right, well, if I can write a chapter and publish it and have something that I'm proud of, then that is the first step in my way of writing then my own book. So yes, it was a great process in that I was guided along the way, and able to structure my story. But the book in general is a great read. There's 12 chapters, all with very different stories, and all of which have that underlying theme of action. So my story does focus on kind of what happened after 1998 and how I chose to move forward.
Well, as I say, you should write your own book, because write it for yourself, and everybody, I don't know who wouldn't want to read it, because even that chapter is so well written and so easy to read, and I can just feel, I when I was reading it, I could feel the emotion in it. I really resonated with it. And I was aligning it to like the grieving process, because it was very, very similar. So I think your book would be amazing. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's your next challenge, to get your book out. So I want to thank you so much, Claire, for coming on the podcast. It's been an absolute honour to talk to you. You're so inspirational and full of courage, and I want to thank you so much for taking part.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Martina. It's been lovely.